Ryzen 9850X3D, it's the new fastest gaming CPU in 2026. But what's the best graphics card, RAM, motherboard, and other components for your Ryzen 9850X3D build? Welcome back to PC Builder, I'm Jason. This best Ryzen 9850X3D gaming PC build 2026 guide, we're going to cover everything that you need to know for the best Ryzen 9850X3D PC build, including the best graphics card for the Ryzen 9850X3D, the best RAM for the Ryzen 9850X3D, the best motherboard for the Ryzen 9850X3D, and more. And I'll give you build templates for both a maximum value Ryzen 9850X3D PC build and a premium 9850X3D right here gaming PC build. If you get value out of this video, please give it a like, of course, subscribe for more cool PC content. Let's jump into it. This video is sponsored by VIP SCD Key. Say goodbye to crazy expensive Windows licenses and that terrible Activate Windows watermark. Right now, use the links in the video description, head over to VIP SCD Key and get a Windows 11 OEM license for a great price. Pick your product license, then use the PC Builder discount code PC25 for an additional 30% off. Go to the activation settings on your PC, put in the code, and boom! Windows is fully licensed for a crazy low price, and they have Microsoft Office licenses too. Use the links in the video description. So what's the best graphics card for the Ryzen 9850X3D in 2026? Well, when building a gaming PC, you generally want to get the biggest, fastest graphics card you can afford, then just get a CPU that won't bottleneck it. But at the high end of graphics cards, starting around the RX 9070 XT or RTX 5070 Ti and higher, upping that CPU power can significantly increase our FPS. This is especially true in CPU-intensive titles like Battlefield 6 or CS2, where competitive gamers often use lowered settings and lowered resolutions to maximize their FPS. So what's the best CPU and GPU combo for the Ryzen 9850X3D? Well, the MSRP of the Ryzen 9850X3D is $499. I will leave retail links in the video description and you can check out current pricing right now. Other X3D CPUs are like the Ryzen 9800X3D, currently selling for $460. It's about 3% slower with an RTX 5090 at 1080p, and the Ryzen 7800X3D sells for $400. It's about 10% slower. Meanwhile, a mid-tier gaming CPU like the Ryzen 5 7600X or 9600X goes for about $180 to $200, and they are about 20% slower. This is a pretty big price jump from a mid-tier Ryzen 5 CPU to any of the X3D CPUs. So I recommend a minimum GPU of at least a Radeon RX 9070 or RTX 5070, both selling at over $500 at the time of filming. Otherwise, I recommend dropping down your CPU. Use that extra money on your GPU. From there, as we go up in GPU power, the Ryzen 9850X3D makes even more sense, especially when paired with a GPU like an RX 9070 XT, RTX 5070 Ti, or RTX 5080. And of course, if you have an RTX 5090, then hands down, I would reach for the Ryzen 9850X3D. In our build, we went with the MSI RTX 5080 Gaming Trio. All right, let's go over the best RAM for the Ryzen 9850X3D CPU in 2026, and this has gotten so much more complicated as we're in the middle of a consumer RAM shortage due to, of course, massive AI data center expansion. And it's likely to last at least a while, so our recommendations have definitely changed from previous years. Now, while prices are definitely not good, for those with a budget big enough for a Ryzen 9850X3D PC build, the RAM price increase means you'll need to spend about another 10 to 15% of your overall budget. We'll break down the full cost later in the video. Now, all the regular Ryzen AM5 RAM basics apply to the Ryzen 9850X3D. We want a 2-stick kit, as current gen DDR5 controllers, they just don't work well with 4 sticks, and 1 stick loses performance over a 2-stick kit. We also want to go into the BIOS and enable the one-click XMP or AMD RAM auto overclocking timings to run the kit at the full rated speed. And you can see our how to set up a PC after you build guide for more on that, link down in the video description. And all the AM5 motherboards will use either Intel XMP or AMD Expo RAM one-click auto overclocking profiles, and there's no performance between the two, so don't worry about which one you get. For the RAM speed, well, Ryzen AM5 non-X3D CPUs prefer 6000 speed with very slight performance loss going either faster or slower. Ryzen X3D CPUs like the 9850X3D, they just don't care very much due to their huge amount of V-cache. AMD claims a less than 1% performance difference between 4800 and 6000 speed RAM with an RTX 5090 at 1080p, and this is in line with our own previous testing of Ryzen X3D CPUs going all the way up to 8000 speed. So my advice is don't overspend on the RAM speed or the cache latency. Just get something between 5200 and 8000 speed and spend your money elsewhere to increase performance. Now note that not all motherboards may be able to clock up the faster 8000 stuff, so I tend to stay at 7200 or below if possible. But kits like DDR5 5600CL32, DDR5 6000CL36, or 6400CL38, those should all be treated as essentially the same for FPS performance. In our build, we used the DDR5 6000CL28 G-Skill Neo kit that AMD sent over with the CPU. So how much RAM do you need? Well, you can game on a 2x8GB kit, so 16GB total. This is an extremely high-end build, and I just recommend you grab 32GB, which are cheaper on a per gigabyte basis at the time of filming, starting around $330. While 16GB kits, they're around $200. Newegg is currently bundling DDR5 RAM with other components like motherboards, which does result in some pretty big savings, so I'll leave those linked down in the video description as long as they do that. In the US, also if you have a local micro center, they have some similar in-store only bundles, and for those of you outside the US, I suggest you check your local PC parts retailer to see if they do similar kinds of bundles. So what's the best motherboard for the Ryzen 9850X3D? Well, the Ryzen 9850X3D will work on any AM5 motherboard. We're going to target the motherboards that are best for gamers. And ideally, we want to get a B650E or B850 motherboard from mid-range to premium builds, or consider X870 or X870E for the most premium 9850X3D builds in 2026. Skip those A620 and B840 motherboards that do not allow the use of Precision Boost Overdrive, because we want to enable that in the BIOS for the best performance. And I'd likely skip the B650 motherboards that only have PCIe Gen 4 GPU slots instead of the Gen 5 GPU slot that's found on virtually all B850 and all B650E, X870, and X870E motherboards. The difference between the B-series motherboards and the X870 and X870E motherboards, it's typically more professional features like more than 3 M.2 NVMe SSD slots and increased USB rear panel USB ports, but we'll have some in the ultra premium section for top-end builds. Of course, we gotta talk about ASRock motherboards that had issues with damaging Ryzen 9000 series X3D CPUs in 2025. But are they still bad for Ryzen 9000 series X3D CPUs in 2026? I reached out to ASRock, who claimed that BIOS version 3.40, released in August of 2025, has addressed the problem, and they've seen a reduction in reported cases overall and on Reddit. And they're likely referring here to the ASRock X3D failures megathread in the r/ASRock subreddit. Looking over the data myself in the ASRock failures megathread number 4, it does seem like reported cases are down quite a bit. I am cautiously optimistic, but if you have a concern, feel free to buy a motherboard from MSI, Gigabyte, or Asus instead. Now, our build was done prior to the release of the 9850X3D, and we used the ASRock X870E Tai Chi motherboard that AMD provided in advance of the launch, and it was sent over pre-configured with a BIOS that worked with the 9850X3D. While the board looks amazing, if I'm being honest, I probably would have picked a different board myself. So let's talk about that BIOS. You're going to need to flash virtually every AM5 motherboard to get it working properly with the Ryzen 9850X3D. Now, AMD recommends that you use a BIOS that supports at least a GISA 1.7.2.1 or later. It is possible you might get an older BIOS to post with the Ryzen 9850X3D. That would get you to the BIOS, and you can use that BIOS flash utility in the BIOS. But every AM5 motherboard I've seen also has BIOS flashback, which allows you to flash the BIOS without a compatible CPU. You can download the latest BIOS by going to the support page for your motherboard. We go through how to use BIOS flashback step by step in our How to Build a PC video, which is linked in our How to Build a PC 2026 video playlist in the description. And most motherboard manuals do come with instructions as well. All right, I'm gonna give you my top picks in every budget category for the Ryzen 9850X3D. For even more picks, check out our most recent Best Ryzen Motherboard video linked in the video description. We're gonna skip over all the just budget motherboards, and we're gonna jump straight into the mid-range. Now, all the motherboards I'm going to suggest have good enough VRMs, they got basic audio, 2 or more M.2 NVMe SSD drives, and a decent array of rear panel USB outputs. They start around $150, but be aware that the more premium motherboards, they're not that much more money, so check those out linked down in the video description before you buy something. For micro ATX sized motherboards, we've got the Gigabyte B850M Eagle for around $150, with 4 high-speed USB ports, including a Type-C, 4 lower speed USB ports, and a built-in rear I/O shield. 2 M.2 SSD slots, including one with a heat spreader, Wi-Fi 6E, and of course has basic audio. There's also the Gigabyte B850M Gaming X, which has nicer styling, slightly better VRMs, and it's about $10 more. From MSI, we've got the Pro B850M-P. It's a very similar motherboard, but comes with Wi-Fi 7. And then there's the better MSI Pro B850M-A, which upgrades all the USB ports to high speed and 2 Type-Cs. Mid-range ATX motherboards start at $160 right now, which at the time of filming feels a little expensive because again, those premium motherboards don't cost much more, but remember to check those links in the video description for current pricing. The MSI B850 Gaming Plus Wi-Fi is very similar to the Pro B850M-P, except it uses a more gamery styling. And then we've got the Gigabyte B850 Eagle and Gaming X for around $175. They're just full-size ATX versions of the Micro ATX motherboards, with the Gaming X version adding an additional full bandwidth M.2. ASUS also has the B650E Gaming Plus Wi-Fi, similar features but a weaker VRM. Now jumping over to premium motherboards, we want 3 full bandwidth M.2 drives, at least 2 of them having heat sinks, built-in rear I/O plate with good USB connectivity. We want upgraded audio codec to ALC 1200, 1220, or 4080, strong VRMs, and of course it's got to look amazing. Now for the past year, my top value pick has been the ASUS TUF B650E Plus with upgraded ALC 1220 audio, 3 full bandwidth M.2 NVMe SSD slots with covers, decent but not amazing rear USB connectivity, and Wi-Fi 6E. I also think it looks amazing for around $170. Just note there is another more mid-range version called the TUF B650E-E. I know, confusing, right? So get the Dash Plus instead. The TUF B850 Plus version, it ups the speed of the 4 USB 2.0 ports, so they're all fast now, and it adds Wi-Fi 7. Currently sells for just under $200 US. I'm not gonna lie, I absolutely love the styling on these TUF motherboards. MSI has the B850 Tomahawk, which is similar to the B850 TUF, except it offers 3 USB Type-C ports. That's as many as even the best X370E motherboards, and has more USB connectivity overall. It also has black styling for right around $210. Moving over to Gigabyte, they have the Aorus Elite B850 motherboards, which should now be the newer version 1.1 with upgraded AL1220 audio instead of the basic audio that the original version launched with. These boards have impressive rear panel USB connectivity, really sleek black styling for right around $220. Moving over to some ultra premium motherboards, and check out our most recent Best Ryzen motherboard video for even more options here. There's a weird overlap of X870 mid-range motherboards that just aren't as good as the premium B850s that I've already talked about, so I'm gonna go ahead and skip those. But if you do see them on something like a RAM combo deal, anything X870, it's essentially fine for the Ryzen 9850 X3D. Ultra premium X870 and X870E motherboards should offer at least 4 M.2 NVMe SSD slots, upgraded audio, excellent rear panel USB connectivity, Wi-Fi 7, fantastic VRMs, and of course look amazing. Now starting at just around $210, we have the ASUS TUF X870 Plus with tons of rear panel USB connectivity, including 2 Type-C ports and slightly different styling than the B850 TUF. For about $20 more, we've got the MSI X870 Tomahawk with similar features, but includes a postcode readout, which I think every motherboard should definitely have, as they're extremely useful for any troubleshooting. It also has 5 gigabit LAN and 3 Type-C ports, but 1 M.2 slot, it's only half bandwidth. There's an X870E version and newer X870E Max version that upgrades all the M.2s to full bandwidth, along with some other minor changes. If you are looking for a postcode readout along with great features, any of the Aorus X870 or X870E motherboards are great, starting right around $270, with the X870 Aorus Elite or the ICE version for about $10 more, where even the cable connections and yes, the postcode readout are actually white. Another great white motherboard is the ASUS ROG Strix X870-A with great features for right around $240. Of course, there's tons of other motherboard options, including back connector, all white, mini ITX motherboards, and more. So check those links down in the video description and our Best Ryzen motherboard video as well. So what's the best CPU cooler for the Ryzen 9850 X3D? Well, it's got additional thermal headroom and that can help push CPU clocks higher. And I do recommend turning on Precision Boost Overdrive in the BIOS. So I think investing just a little bit more in our cooler, it makes sense. And that both slightly improves the performance of the CPU itself, but it also reduces system noise. For value-focused builds, I recommend any mid-range air cooler, like the id Cooling A620, Thermalright Phantom Spirit or Peerless Assassin, the Cooler Master 622 Halo, or similar style dual tower cooler. If you want to take the build aesthetics to the next level, just about any 240mm all-in-one liquid cooler is sufficient. But honestly, given how cheap they've become, I personally would go with a 360mm cooler, despite the fact that it's a little bit overkill for the CPU. For more budget models, I like the Thermalright Aqua Elite V3 Liquid AIO cooler, We used the 360mm version in our Ryzen 9600X build guide. In our build, we went with a really excellent id cooling FX 360 LCD for $90, which mixes great performance with cool aesthetics. My only complaint here, I wish that LCD screen was a tiny bit bigger, but I love it. I did run a 10-minute Cinebench R23 torture test on the CPU, and even with the fan set to the standard profile in the BIOS, not even full speed, the CPU only briefly peaked at 80 degrees C, which is well under the 95C thermal throttle limit. Gaming loads obviously are going to be quite a bit below that. Other great coolers include the Montech Hyperflow 360 for just about $75 or the Arctic Liquid Freezer Pro for about $100. All right, so what's the best SSD for the Ryzen 9850X3D? Well, if you haven't had a chance to check out our best SSD for gaming video, I will leave it linked down in the video description for a deeper dive. The update to that video, of course, we were experiencing SSD price increases due to, of course, AI data center demand, and at the time of filming, a DRAM-less 1TB NVMe SSD has more than doubled in price from about $60 last year to about $140 right now. There is no gaming benefit, by the way, from using anything faster than even a SATA SSD, though PCIe Gen 3 and Gen 4 NVMe SSDs, they're generally better price to performance options. I don't recommend Gen 5 M.2 NVMe's for gaming because they're twice as expensive as Gen 4 drives with no consumer benefit. They also run quite hot, and sometimes motherboards end up sharing lanes with the GPU or other PCIe slots when you socket that Gen 5 M.2 NVMe. Check your motherboard specs if you plan to buy one. Now that being said, AMD sent over the Samsung 9100 Gen 5 NVMe SSD pre-configured with Windows 11 25H2 build already installed, so just for the sake of time, we decided to go ahead and use that. But I generally would not buy this one for myself for a gaming build. For more budget 9850X3D builds, I'd recommend just grab a cheaper Gen 3 or Gen 4 NVMe with a good SLC cache or host memory buffer process like the Western Digital SN5000, Silicon Power UD90, or Team Group G50. For more mid-range to premium builds that want to add a DRAM cache and make that SSD a little bit snappier when doing things like file copies and game installs, you can consider grabbing a drive like the Clevcraft C930, the Team Group G70 Pro Graphene, or other similar drive. Now, 2TB models are quite a bit better on a price per terabyte basis than 1TB right now. 4TB models are slightly cheaper still than 2TB models on a per terabyte basis. And I will leave several SSDs linked down in the video description. Check those links because I expect pricing to be quite volatile this year. Let's talk best PC cases for the Ryzen 9850X3D. Now, this is going to be a high-end gaming PC. We want it to look amazing, but it also needs to have good airflow. Since we're using a lot of higher-end graphics cards, we also want a case that's going to fit some of those longer and beefier GPUs as well. For micro ATX, I like the Thermaltake View 170TG. It's got 3 included ARGB fans, space to top mount a 240mm AIO cooler or just add some additional fans there, and it runs about $55. Or the Antec Flux M for about $65 with similar specs. Of course, most of you are going to want a full-size ATX case. There are tons of great options right now. We use the Lee & Lee V100R in white for just $79, 4 included ARGB fans. The side 3 are all reverse blade intake. This case fit our eATX size motherboard, incredible, and it looks great with an ARGB strip on the bottom. If you want more of a traditional front intake PC case, I really like the Montech XR Wood with 4 included ARGB fans, just about $80, or step it up to either the Corsair 4000D Frame RS, in either a non-RGB or ARGB model for right around $100, though you will need to pick up an additional rear exhaust fan. For even more premium cases, check out the Antec C5. We've used this in the past. It's got 7 included ARGB fans, looks amazing with its dual chamber design for $120. Of course, there's tons of other great alternatives, including things like the Montech King 95, so I will leave additional options in the video description, and of course, check out our best PC cases video for even more options. All right, let's talk about the PSU. Now, you can check out our best PSU buying guide for more details on how to size and buy the best PSU for your needs and budget. For a build like this, given the high-end GPUs that we're considering for it, I would recommend getting at least a B tier or better PSU as rated on the SPL PSU tier list. And then you want to size it at 1.5 times the max rated draw in PC Part Picker. And if you're going to drop in an RX 9070 XT, RTX 5070 Ti, or higher end GPU, then I would definitely grab at least a B, if not an A tier rated PSU. We ended up using the Seasonic Focus GX 1000 watt PSU, currently rated A- tier on the SPL PSU tier list, which had been sent over to us by Seasonic for a different project. It's a great unit with high quality cables. It's PCIe 5.0 and ATX 3.1, so it has that updated 12 volt high power 2x6 cable connector for NVIDIA GPUs. So how much should your Ryzen 9850 X3D gaming PC build cost you in 2026? I put together two build templates that should get you started. The first is a mid-range value focused build, uses the Ryzen 9850 X3D at its $499 MSRP, a mid-range air cooler, a mid-range micro ATX size motherboard, DDR5 6000 CL30 non-RGB RAM for $350, a 1TB DRAM-less NVMe SSD, and an Atrium-style micro ATX size PC case, as well as a B-tier rated 850 watt PSU. Now, without the GPU included, the build costs right around $1,300 US. For a more premium build like this one here, we went with the id Cooling FX ARGB AIO, upgraded the motherboard to the more premium TUF B850 Plus model for $190. We went with the same DDR5 6000 CL30 kit of RAM, upgraded the NVMe SSD to one with DRAM at Gen 4 speed. We went with the same Lianli V100R PC case that we used in this build and upped the PSU to an A-tier rated 1000 watt model for just about $1,470 before the cost of the GPU. Of course, you can spend even more with additional M.2 storage, even more premium motherboards and PC cases, and a higher wattage PSU, but those templates, they should get you started. I'll leave both of them linked down in the video description for you to check out along with alternative parts. So what's your Ryzen 9850 X3D PC build gonna be? Let me know down in the comments. And remember to check out everything that's linked down in that video description for current pricing and availability, along with DDR5 combo deals and our how to build a PC playlist, including our guide on how to build a PC and of course, set up your PC after you build it. If you got value out of this video, please give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel. And of course, subscribe for more cool PC content. And we'll catch you on the next one.